Right now, it's my absolute honor to introduce Nancy Foster, Senior Vice President of Human and Corporate Resources at Husky Energy, one of Canada's largest integrated energy companies. Nancy is with us to offer opening remarks and to introduce our first session. Currently, Ms. Foster is responsible for human resources, diversity, real estate, corporate services, information services, and health, safety, and environment at Husky Energy. As you can imagine, she must be one busy lady. Prior to joining Husky in this capacity, Ms. Foster was country manager for Nexen, responsible for direction, management, and corporate strategy of Nexen's Norwegian operations. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Nancy Foster.
Well, thank you so much, Lenore. I am a little nervous about giving the speech because this morning I thought that if you had Husky Energy on your, that you worked for Husky. So, not my brightest moment. I would have thought we had far less engineers than this. But anyway, welcome everybody. And I'm really honored to be here at the Women in Engineering Expo this morning, surrounded by so many accomplished engineers. A field that, as you all know, is very critical to the future of our industry. As I'm sure, as you just heard, Lenore, I don't share your background in engineering, but I do believe we have a lot of similarities. Most of you, I'm guessing, are here today because you're passionate about your profession, about learning new ideas, and about making meaningful contributions to your organizations. Like you, learning, collaboration with a diverse team of professionals, and achieving results that I can be proud of is what keeps my work interesting and fulfilling. I also share the same passion for my field, my organization, and the industry that I have called home for over 32 years. And I have faced many of the same struggles you have or will encounter during your professional journey as a woman, working in an industry and a profession that is, in many cases, predominantly male. Age and experience have allowed me to learn many lessons during my journey. And I'm going to share with you 5 of which this morning, of which I think have been most helpful to me in my career. Learning number 1 is success is not formulaic. Now, for a group of engineers, that may be a bit difficult to hear, but for me, it's true. I started out in oil and gas 32 years ago with Home Oil. I had moved to Calgary right out of university to work for Home, following my brother who had moved out here a year before to work for Dome Petroleum. He called me up and he said, "Oh, this is the most exciting place. Calgary is thriving. It's fantastic. You have to come. You have to try it out." Now, I came in May of 1981, not long after the government decided to implement the National Energy Program, and we all know, or at least for some of you looking in your history books, what happened after that. I did view my first job in oil and gas as somewhat of a minor detour. My aspiration actually was to become a lawyer. But once I got into the energy industry, I found my brother, for once, was right. It was exciting, it had challenges, and even though I've actually lived through 9 different downsizings in different companies, I still found I couldn't think of a better industry that I'd want to work in. So I have a BA, but I did have a strong desire to achieve a leadership role in an industry shaped by those with your engineering and science backgrounds. On top of that, I am a woman, and I did want children along with that career. So I knew I had to work hard. Everyone knows that if they want to be successful, they have to work hard, but I believed it was going to be doubly challenging. In fact, when I first came into the industry, what I observed was that the sooner you became a manager, the more flexibility you'd have. So if I wanted to have a family, it made far more sense for me to try and move up in the organization as opposed to saying, well, I don't want to take on more responsibility because it'll be too much of a challenge for me. What I saw was that the VPs were actually more concerned about what you produced versus your presence. They didn't time keep, whereas what I saw was a few maniacal managers, as I called them, that were more concerned at the time that you spent on your desk versus the results that you got. So my goal actually was to become a manager in the oil and gas industry as quickly as possible, so I could have more flexibility for my family. So going back to not having a technical background is probably why I didn't have a set formula for my career. I knew that I had to look at my career and from a broader perspective and take opportunities. So I began my career in an area called Special Projects Accounting. Sounds riveting, doesn't it? It involved working on grant applications to the governments for the Petroleum Incentive Program, which was brought in as part of the National Energy Program. I've also worked in budgets, management reporting, corporate planning, business development, human resources, and as Lenore has already said, in operations in Norway, where I was the in-country manager for an exploration-led office. So how was I able to move around to this extent? Well, that's what learning number 2 is about. Put your hand up. Although there's been no formula to my career, there has been one constant: a willingness to put myself forward for things at work. I've always volunteered for projects that I thought would be interesting and I thought would make a difference to the organization. For example, the first time I was at Husky, I worked for Husky the first time around from 83 to 93. And I put my hand up to work on a project called QUEST, Quality Work Environment with Shareholder Thrust. I don't know who thinks of this stuff, but anyway, that's what it was called. And what the senior executive was trying to do was engage the employees at a time when the industry was extremely volatile, when finding easy oil was gone, where they knew that innovation was absolutely critical, that they needed employees who were creative, who were willing to be open to new ideas, to work hard, and to have a stake in the organization. And it was in working on this initiative that I became interested in HR. Honestly, I would have never thought that. I never viewed HR as, I thought of it as payroll, and the ones who made you bring in a note when you were pregnant, even though you're 8 months pregnant and it's obvious, you still have to bring in a note from your doctor saying you're pregnant. That's how I viewed them. I had no idea of the power in HR and the value that they brought to an organization. So that's an example of me putting up my hand and saying, wow, it opened new opportunities for me. I also put up my hand to work on the Nexen-Wascana integration project. I had been in corporate planning and business development, and so was part of the team that had identified Wascana, but I had been asked to move into compensation and benefits for 6 months to cover off for someone who was on leave because I understood the bonus program. Well, I said, okay, I'll do that, but I also still want to be involved on the integration side. And so I put up my hand to be the data room manager. I called myself Queen of the Data Room. But it was, and some people thought, why do you want to do that? It was an excellent opportunity to meet all the new people coming in from Wascana and to learn tons about the assets and actually about their HR programs, because in the end, I ended up heading up the project to integrate their HR systems. So again, it turned out to be a great opportunity. It may not have, but it was a window, and I saw it, and I climbed through it. So I took chances on new ways of doing things and challenges that seemed overwhelming but valuable to me at the time. So for example, quite a few years ago, I was asked to be the interim vice president of HR at Nexen. It was called Canoxy at the time. Now, I knew that I wasn't, in all likelihood, going to get the role because I'd only actually been in HR for about a year. But they asked if I would step up, and for the length of time that it would take for them to go outside and find a replacement, would I do this role? I said, absolutely. I saw it as a great opportunity to get exposure to senior executive and to learn even more than I'd already been exposed to over the year. So no, I didn't get the role. And I worked in HR for another year, but what happened is I got approached to be VP of Finance for the Canadian Oil and Gas Division. Because of the exposure that I'd had, because of the success we had had on integrating the HR systems, they asked me to go in and work on integrating the finance systems. So it led to something that was a very valuable experience for me. And a few years later, they actually did come back to me and ask me to take on the Senior Vice President's role of HR and supply management. So yes, it's been serendipitous, but if I wouldn't have taken on those challenges, the opportunity certainly wouldn't have been there. Okay. So put your hand up. Volunteer for challenging projects. Challenge yourself to take on new leadership responsibilities. As a woman, don't be shy to do so. It's in your company's best interests. In fact, companies that achieve diversity in their management and on their corporate boards attain better financial results on average than other companies. And the executive director of Catalyst is going to be here to speak to you. It's a fantastic organization. Husky joined it 2 years ago, and they do research and provide real tangible data on not just women, but that is their main focus and has been for years, on where we are in terms of disciplines and where we are in terms of boards. And looking at the root causes as to why we haven't seen improvement. So I think you're really going to enjoy it. It's got some really great data and insights. And companies with the most women board directors outperform those with at least return on sales by 16% and return on invested capital by 26%. Those are real tangible numbers that shouldn't be ignored. So learning number 3, support others and seek out support. Over the course of my career, I've been extremely fortunate to develop a network of people who've given me authentic, honest feedback and guidance, and most of all, a boost of confidence when I really needed it. These people were not only mentors, they were sponsors. Now, I think a lot of you are hearing a lot more about sponsors lately. About a year ago, it became an aha moment for all of us that, you know, in fact, women have more mentors than men do. That's a surprising statistic. So why isn't that working? Well, men have sponsors. They have the advocates. They have those that behind the closed doors are advocating for you to get that new role, to get that new opportunity. And that's something that we as women have to do for each other more than we have been. And you also need to seek out sponsors. So set up a coffee. Don't be with more senior individual. Don't be afraid to do that. Men do it. And as well, building a career is heavily dependent on paying it forward and supporting others. Through my career, we've done collegial reviews, 360s, all those type of things. And one of the things that was most common that came out for me is that people trusted me, that they saw me as someone who they could rely on to support them and who didn't believe that celebrating their success or acknowledging their achievements diminished mine. So I think that's something that's very important for all of us, and do it for each other. So I believe the success in my career is a direct result of the strong relationships that I have cultivated over the years. So take each other out for coffee or wine, invite colleagues to professional development opportunities, and celebrate the accomplishments of your junior staff. There's plenty of opportunities for everyone, especially in this industry. Supporting each other can only move us forward, creating more opportunities in an environment where female success is expected rather than unusual. Learning number 4, you can have it all, but not always at the same time. By the time I was 28, I had 4 children and a growing career. I'm a grandma now, and I have to tell you, it's the best thing in the world. It really is. I want more. Back then, a woman balancing a demanding job and a young family was seen as, it was unusual, quite frankly. And as I said, a lot of women thought that the best answer was to stay in a role that wasn't as demanding, that was 8 to 5, and they didn't have to come in on weekends. So there weren't a lot of women trying to manage this work-life balance. And quite frankly, those that were didn't actually talk about it at work. I rarely talked about the fact that I had 4 children because I was concerned that someone would make a decision for me. That, no, we can't give her this role because it will be too stressful for her. My God, the woman has 4 children under 5, right? Well, we don't make those decisions for men. We don't decide what's too stressful for them. So I didn't really talk about it. So I think that was part of just nobody really thought about it and just said, well, she wants to do it, give her the opportunity. I am happy to say today much has changed, although we do, as we keep saying, we do have a long way to go. Employment rates for mothers with children under the age of 6 have more than doubled since 1976, from 32% to 68% in 2007. And in many cases, women are also becoming the household breadwinners. According to the Pew Center for Research, women are now the leading or sole breadwinners in 40% of the U.S. households, compared with just 11% in 1960. But just because there are more mothers in the workplace does not make that ever-present challenge of managing the demands of work and home easier. You have to make choices. You have to value quality over quantity in regards to this time you spend with your family. You have to embrace the imbalance because the work-life equilibrium will never be 50-50. Kids get sick on work days, work projects blow up during soccer playoffs. Life happens at inopportune times. Forgive yourself and do what you can. I have to say, I really didn't have a lot of moments where I was overwhelmed with guilt. Certainly, you know, I'm a mother, so you feel guilty. But, you know, I did what I could to make it to soccer games. And just as an aside, you know, one Mother's Day, my 4 kids gave me a performance review. And I said, one of their biggest complaints was that I would show up at their soccer games in suits. What? Yeah, all the other moms, they were wearing jeans and, you know, you stood out. You looked, weird. So who'd have thought, right? I thought me getting there and being there and cheering them on was the most important thing. So no matter what you do, there's always going to be something you could have done better. So you have to be happy with it. You have to be happy with your life and the choices you make. And of course, a good partner is key to all of this. My husband's actually never been threatened by my success. He's actually, he's retired, so he loves it. He valued my achievements and supported me where we could. When I was offered the job in Norway, he was actually president of a small bank. And we made the decision together that we thought that this would be a fantastic opportunity for us. And it wasn't easy for him, as you can well imagine. He was used to being just so busy and involved, and he goes to Norway, and most of the expat spouses were female. So the first 6 months were kind of tough, but he adjusted. And because of him, his support, I was able to build a great team. And it was a fantastic experience. So having a sponsor at home is just as important as having a sponsor at work. And the last learning, our work is only just beginning. Men represent almost 71% of the total workforce in mining, oil and gas extraction, while they only account for 55% of all employed Albertans. When I first began in this industry, the ratio was even more imbalanced. And at times, this imbalance was palpable. In fact, I remember going to my first board meeting with another company. And when I walked into the boardroom, the chairman of the board asked me if I was there to serve the coffee. I was a bit speechless, which is quite different for me. But thankfully, my CEO, who is a great leader, he quickly stepped in and he helped me brush it off, and so I could do what I had come there to do. Today, women make up 19% of the mining and oil and gas industry's workforce, and 12% are senior executives. That hasn't changed all that much over the last 10 years. It hasn't changed for board membership across Canada and in the United States either. So even though it's progress from when I first began, it's far from equal, particularly at the top. And I mean that in every sense of the word. In this industry, there are often more female CFOs than COOs. There are more female leaders in communications, law, and human resources than geology and operations. And there's female brain drain going on in the science and engineering fields. Well, there is no shortage of women enrolling in university, with women holding a 58% share of undergraduate enrollment for all fields. The percentage of women choosing natural science and engineering fields is low. In fact, in 2010, only 17% of students enrolled in Canadian undergraduate engineering programs were women, and this number has been on the decline. In fact, despite a decade of efforts to encourage more girls to think of technical careers, the number of women enrolled in engineering programs in Canada dropped from a high of 21% in 2001 to this 17.7% I just quoted. In terms of labor force participation, in 2010, only 10.5% of registered professional engineers in Canada were women. That's from Engineers Canada. This is problematic because many important strategic decisions are made on the technical side of our business, and it's our lifeblood. If we don't find new and innovative and more cost-effective ways to extract hydrocarbons, we're going to be a shrinking industry. We need the support. We need these women to choose to come into this industry and bring their creativity and expertise. We need to be in the room where the decisions are being made. So doing what you're doing, ensuring women enter and stay in engineering university is a great first step. Scholarship and mentorship programs aimed at female engineering students, such as the Canadian Engineering Memorial Foundation, are crucial. Providing good sponsorship once these women in the workforce is another critical step. We have a lot to do in terms of workforce equality and diversity in this industry. This room alone, full of accomplished female professionals, is a fantastic step forward. So thank you for having me this morning. I hope you have a great 2 days. I saw your agenda. It looks really interesting and exciting, and I think you'll have a lot of inspiring discussions and come out engaged and fired up. So I would now like to introduce Laurie Campbell from the association. Was I supposed to have questions or no? Does anybody have any questions?